looking at the time that we're in now compared to that time, are we in crisis?
Well, yeah, we're in a whole new world now. I mean, in most places, there's not, as I said, Coffee Connection was by itself.
Yep.
We are the only show in town
Yep.
uh, because we did make decisions that really made us stand out, right? And became a media darling immediately because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, that's much more difficult to do.
This episode is proudly brought to you by Mapper Forward's workshop. It's time to become a coffee consultant. Learn how to diversify your revenue streams and create freedom from your day job while saying goodbye to that alarm clock forever by becoming a consultant within the coffee industry or directly to consumers who have shifted towards home brewing and home roasting. Protect your income from challenging times in the coffee value chain by taking this course today. Go to mapperforward.coffee/workshops or click the link in the show notes for details. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 1 of a series I am very privileged to bring you. I'm welcoming back to the podcast for the second time, George Howell from George Howell Coffee. Welcome back, George.
Thank you, Lee. Glad to be back.
This is a real privilege. We are a year and some months later from the last time we had a conversation, and we have kept the theme the same for this series as we did last year. And I hope it's many, many more years that we get to have you back on the podcast and have the same thing that we speak about again. And the theme for this series is the coffee industry according to George Howell in 2024. Well, there's nobody else we have on the podcast that has that theme.
Well, next time I have to have my daughter Jenny with me.
Yes,
We can
that
have
would be
online podcast argument.
that would be fun. I've got to have Jenny on the podcast.
Main points.
as long as she's agreeing with the main points. So George,
disagreement. Go ahead.
George, this is a very poignant time in our industry. And we have a lot of new listeners on the podcast. And I'm really grateful to say that we have a lot of people that are entering the industry, a lot of Gen Zers that are coming into the industry that feel very confused by what's going on. So I'm privileged to be able to have, the person who was involved at the beginning of Cup of Excellence. You started Coffee Connection. Coffee Connection was where the Frappuccino was born and sold to Starbucks and all that kind of stuff. But more than anything, you are the person in my mind that injected the kind of consciousness that we needed to start being aware. You are one of the people who really started getting us thinking about being conscious of the way that we participate in the coffee supply chain. And now more than ever, that is relevant because I feel that we are at a real intersection in the history of our industry. And so today, folks, we're going to talk about whether coffee is in crisis. So before we get started with that, George, please just give people a very brief couple of minutes backstory just for the new people in the audience. The majority of everybody knows who you are, but the young'uns don't. So just for their sake, so that we can make this a standalone episode, help them understand just very briefly who you are.
So my background is art, a little bit of dabbling in it, but really the history of art. And coming to realize pretty young while I was at Yale that I'm not so much the artist, but I'm somebody who wants to promote artists. And that's still the theme today, because there is something of growing coffee even as something of an art form, a craft, a concern about creating something beyond where they are today. Right. And I moved from the West Coast, California, the San Francisco, Berkeley area, where specialty, as it was beginning to be called, thanks to Erna Knudsen, was born, with Pete's and other roasters as well that have since disappeared. But it was really starting to happen there when I moved east. Um, we found zero, a desert in Boston, where we came, and definitely needed to make a living. On the one hand, the art that I was exhibiting, which was indigenous, that was a long-term project and was a pure act of love because it certainly wasn't a moneymaker and wasn't going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We realized that we had a model, a successful model from the West Coast of cafes
Mm-hmm.
that was just beginning. So we decided to open one. My wife came up with the name of the Coffee Connection, which came from the French Connection, a very popular
Nice.
movie back then. Uh, and, we quickly learned that it wasn't a matter of how stale the coffee was, which it was incredibly stale.
Mm-hmm.
It was a matter of mislabeling. There were coffees that were being sold as Jamaican Blue Mountain and this and that and the other thing. And they were all really ended up being just blends of three origin coffees
Mm.
from America and Brazil. So we decided to roast. We were able to get a roaster from Germany, a Probot. And the question became when we opened up in Harvard Square, okay, how do we prove that we're roasters? Because you can't roast in Harvard Square. It's just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Big and all the rest of it. So we were, roasting 20 miles away. Uh, and so how do you prove that? How do you, it's been, for me, it's always been essential is if I'm making claims, how do I prove them?
Yeah.
That's really critical. So back in those days, there were no one-way valve bags or anything like that. We were selling coffee in barrels, you know, scooping them into bags, right? So we labeled every barrel, and we started with about 15 coffees, most of which were blends back then, because
Mm-hmm.
that was the some single origins, but no farms. It was all and Guatemala or Antigua, Colombian Supremo, Kenya,
Wow.
right? That's it. But there was nothing more than that.
Ethiopia, hurrah. We'll
Yes,
touch on that later.
we did. And
Yes.
we had
Nobody's got
yeah,
that anymore.
sorry as well, right?
Mm.
And right away, but first with the roasting, I came up with how do I prove that we're roasters? How do we get the point across? It's one thing to say we're roasters. Well, we put roast dates down on every single barrel, and we were
Mm.
roasting twice a week because we were roasting and then selling in our cafe. I mean, I'd be in both places, right? Um, so we put roast dates on every single barrel, and I also had it where we had to put the roast date on every bag we sold. So if I sold you a bag, I entered the roast date then.
Was that revolutionary at the time?
Utterly. In
Wow.
fact, it was something like 20 plus years before anybody else was doing it.
Wow.
We're way ahead of our time. Now, I'd love to know if somebody was doing it earlier, but right now I don't know of any, or I've forgotten, but I think I don't know of any until really as we start to approach the 21st century, right?
Wow.
So, so we did that immediately. And then the other concern that I had, especially because there was mislabeling right and
Mm.
left, uh, was proving to people that indeed coffees tasted different one from the other. So how do you serve? I mean, here we are serving coffee out of a big urn, right? With an old Cecil ware back then. And that made sense because a lot of people are in a hurry. They don't want to stay in line or whatever. But you also want to prove that here, try these three coffees and taste. They're different from each other. So we started serving single French press day one, right away at the coffee bar. So those 15 coffees, and we had people who would sit
Did
at
you
the
just say
bar.
15 coffees? You were selling 15 coffees back then in one store?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whole barrels of it, right?
Wow.
Different blends and single farm, right? And I also looked for the source. Where am
Hmm.
I going to get my coffees? Cupping did not exist in my world back then at all. So it was a matter of getting coffee and then learning what I got. Or starting to brew coffee, but brewing it and judging it on the basis of what I brewed.
So how were you QCing it back then, George?
We would have either Melita filters, and there was another one that was cone shaped as well that we had. And we were selling these by the dozens, right, all the
Right.
time. Um, I made of plastic. So we would brew it that way, single cup, right? And pouring over the grounds and tasting it that way, or through French press. Although we found drip was more accurate for that, right? Cleaner.
Wow.
But again, and so we didn't like what we were getting out of the East Coast. And so I went to Erna Knudsen in San Francisco. Every coffee we were buying in 1975, well into the 80s, literally 95 to 100% of every coffee was coming out of San Francisco from Erna to us in Boston. So that was back then an extra 50, 40 cents to bring that coffee
In
over.
travel.
Right. So we were already in a much higher price range than anybody. But again, we had no competitors either. We were
Right.
by ourselves, right? Um, but by doing what we did, we got a lot of media attention because there was nothing else like that, right? And we were in Harvard Square, which was the beating heart of Boston's, you know, intelligentsia
Right. And
and and youth.
and I got to ask you, that was the beginning of all of it. Not just for you, but that really was the beginning of specialty coffee.
Certainly was,
And
yeah.
and you have gone on to have such an illustrious career with both of those brands, with Coffee Connection and with George Howell Coffee. And you and your daughter Jenny are building the George Howell Coffee. It's world famous. You set the bar when it comes to buying practices and kind of the way that all of us have come to want to aspire to when it comes to the way we look at coffee.
Yeah.
When I ask you this question, are we, well, I'm just going to ask you the question. Looking at the time that we're in now, compared to that time, are we in crisis?
Well, yeah, we're in a whole new world now. I mean, in most places, there's not, as I said, Coffee Connection was by itself.
Yep.
We were the only show in town.
Yep.
Because we did make decisions that really made us stand out, right? And became a media darling immediately because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Today, that's much more difficult to do in most places. You are really, especially in places like Portland or whatever, you're just one cafe among many, right?
Because of the saturation, right?
Saturation. That's exactly right. One thing I've learned, it's funny. Back in the days of Coffee Connection, I'd always say location, location, location. I mean, that was really critical. But I myself, when I started George Howell Coffee, before it was named that, it was terroir.
Okay.
Made a terrible mistake in location.
Really?
To shut down the first thing. Plus it was a restaurant cafe. So instead of a safe bet of somewhere around 1,000 square feet or smaller, or maybe a little larger, I went with a partnership in restaurant tiering with a 4,000 square foot spot.
Wow.
Bourbon, and really had to shut it down. That was Copa Cafe. I loved it. And again, it was also, by the way, trying to be very revolutionary, but I could not get it across to those people who would work with me in food, and that was bites.
Like a
Not
tapas kind of thing?
even smaller.
Oh,
Go to Barcelona.
okay.
Been there?
No.
Okay. They're serving like, as somebody just said to me, 2 bites worth. It's
Okay.
small enough, right? And you walk in Barcelona and you see these great spots, and there are these toothpicks.
Oh, I
Like
have heard of this. Yes.
that's what I want.
Okay.
And I could never get that across. I wanted that with Coffee Connection. Couldn't do it because I'm not a food person, right? I
Right.
love good food, but I'm not a cook,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then with Copa, we did small plates, which was a compromise. It was way ahead of its time. So
Mm-hmm.
for any number of reasons, none of that worked out. That whole thing had to get shut down. And so then I was thrust into something I was completely unfamiliar with, which was wholesale.
Okay.
So it took years to get out of, not to get out of it, but to move towards what I love, which are the cafes, because it's a cafe that speaks to people directly and that puts you with consumer, with nobody in between,
Is
right?
that
Which
where the is that where the crisis is, do you think? Is it in the cafe? Is it in the roastery? Is it in the green buying? Is it for the producers? In your mind, where is the crisis
a
now?
little bit in all of them, but it is the cafe. It's the cafe to me. That is how we speak to the public, and the interchange. The interchange happens there, right?
Mm.
How we get how we are able to communicate what we learn from farmers to the consumer.
Do you
And
think the consumer cares?
um, yeah, some do and some don't, right? But
Mm.
market, there are consumers who really care. I mean, back in the days of Coffee Connection, when coffee was selling for 25 cents and we realized we cup, we
Wow.
jumped way over that, right? We had to
Yeah.
double and triple it. And by the way, we opened up Coffee Connection in 1975, April 1975. The freezer frost of Brazil hit sometime at the around July of 1975. That was 50% of the entire Brazilian crop was wiped out.
Wow.
This was the killer frost. This was
Well,
like nothing since,
well,
right? That,
recently there was a similar
no
frost, right?
years, nowhere,
Really?
right? Nothing compared to this. The sea market was at 75 cents
Mm-hmm.
when this happened, and I did not have my roaster in yet from Germany. Still
Okay.
waiting for it. For the first 3 months, we were actually getting coffee from Sol Zabar in New York City, uh, who who basically was doing a light roast and selling similar to us, but maybe 5 coffees or whatever, including Jamaican Blue Mountain at that time. He was roasting himself. And so I went to him because it was the best I could find on the
Mm-hmm.
East Coast to sell me his roasted coffee. Uh, and uh, and he said to me, "I don't wholesale, and anyway, it'd be way too expensive for you." And I blurted out instantaneously, "I'd rather go broke selling great coffee than make a fortune selling crap."
Wow.
And he said the same thing. Wow, and okay, I'll sell to you.
And that's where
So
it begins?
yeah, it took off from there, right? So
Wow.
um, those were the days where I have a photograph of one of my barrels, which said Hawaiian Kona, $1.99 a pound.
Mm. Yeah.
Think about
Just for context, folks, uh,
that.
Kona coffee right now, like the bottom of the barrel of Kona
Yeah,
coffee right
right.
now, you're looking at somewhere between $35 and $40 green
Minimum.
per
Right,
pound. That's
right.
like the bottom of the barrel of Kona coffee now.
So this was coffee coming in at that time. That's what we were paying, that based on those kind of prices.
Mm.
And then suddenly this freeze happened. Saul Zabar calls me up and says, "That's it. You're not getting any more coffee next week." My roaster arrives the same week.
Oh,
Can you believe it?
I think that the
We're
universe was looking
roasting that
after you then.
weekend frantically, not knowing what we're doing because we never roasted in our lives before.
Wow.
And the sheer novelty of roasting and the roast dates and everything else just keeps us going no matter what. And to give you an idea of how different the world was, we had customers jumping behind the bar because we didn't know we didn't have enough people. We became very popular very fast. They were jumping behind the bar, doing the dishes, doing whatever they could, and refusing payment. Right?
Wow, what a different world.
Completely.
I mean,
So that's 75.
that
That
is that's the one of those things where that's the exciting kind of anxiety, right? Like this is it's enthralling how exciting those moments are as an entrepreneur.
right. It's also a matter of luck. I do not believe that sheer genius brings you necessarily to great conclusions by itself.
Right.
It's a matter of definitely some luck, but also being able to see where the luck's coming from,
Yeah.
which is the other piece, right? And doing other things that leave you open more to getting the luck, right? All of that. It's a crazy combination.
When it
Uh,
comes to luck, I tell you right now, producers don't feel very lucky.
yeah, no, and producers are in a more difficult place, plain and simple,
What
because
is this
they're
crisis for them?
well, the process has been one, and this is ongoing, and in many cases not even started yet, is not even knowing the product that they sell. That's still an issue, especially smaller farmers, right?
You
I
mean
mean,
that they don't taste the coffee roasted and brewed, right?
exactly right. I mean, they don't. I remember, I mean, you know, when I started finally visiting countries, and I didn't go until the mid 80s,
Okay.
right? But I went to some really famous farms in Antigua, Guatemala, and I was served instant coffee on their farm.
Wow, isn't that wild?
Yeah, no concept, none, right? So, and no connection to the product they were selling at all. When I consulted for the gourmet project, which led to Cup of Excellence,
Hmm.
and I can't tell you how many farmers came up to me and would show me green beans and say, "Look at how beautiful these are, and why can't I sell it?" And it seemed like I was talking Chinese when I'd say back because it doesn't taste good.
Hmm.
You got to try it. Maybe it tastes good, maybe it doesn't. But it's the taste, not just the looks,
They
right?
didn't understand the concept that it had to go from, no one
No,
had told them about the green to brown thing.
and that's still much the same case. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
Jenny and I were just back from Guatemala, and one of the coffees we get, which is regional, based on an association, these are very poor farmers
Hmm.
who are really who have combined into a group that is producing some really high quality coffee, uh, that we're getting. Um, but they're starting from scratch, right?
Right.
I'm putting together a little slideshow about that now. Um, and but they don't even have necessarily the means. Well, they have the means, but they're not drinking coffee. They're producing a crop, just like somebody would asparagus or something else. But they're not really aware of what it does. Does the small farmer, by drinking the coffee, have the power to change things? Not necessarily, but it's a beginning. And we're certainly seeing, though, that larger farmers, especially those who have become involved, like with Cup of Excellence or whatever, have started to open up cafes. You can
Yeah.
go to the city in Antigua now, and you can get a really good cup of coffee from any number of places. That's new. right? And so tourists are now being introduced to coffee. But of course, right now, it's a matter of distinguishing yourself from all these other cafes all around you. And everybody's pushing these different milk drinks
Mm.
and beyond. And we are too. I mean, that's how look, Frappuccino made the difference between a dead summer and a profitable summer for our cafes.
Even back
Keep,
then.
oh God, it made a huge difference. Right. And by the way, I did not invent Frappuccino. Let's
No,
get
no,
that.
you are not the inventor of Frappuccino. As you told us on the podcast last time, it was one of your marketing guys who named
He
it.
did not invent it. He came
He
up with a
named
name.
it. Right.
That's right.
He named it. And then it was when Starbucks bought Coffee Connection, it was a part of the
The
sale.
name. And then they altered the very way it's made right away. They were really on a different trajectory. So they named something that looks similar,
Right.
but produced differently, creating the illusion of handmade because it went into a blender. But of course, what goes into the blender is another question, right? Um,
Yeah,
but,
there's a lot of milk and a lot of sugar and a whole little tiny bit of coffee that goes into that.
but I mean, during summer in Harvard Square, for instance, everybody leaves for summer vacation, so that's dead. Now you got tourism coming in,
Mm-hmm.
right, and a different crowd, and Frappuccino just was the ideal substance with lots of sugar, as you say, right?
Yeah.
That really got people into drinking, right? So that brings in the income that allows you then to do the things that you want to do that may cost money and may not remunerate you immediately or down the road, but it allows you to express yourself or express what you love, right?
Is that the secret sauce to building the specialty coffee model? Like you
Yeah,
have to give a little bit
yeah,
and do the things that the consumer wants so that you
yeah.
can create the other side of things, which
Right.
is the art form of coffee, so that you can help get them to the place that you want to get them to. Is that what the model
Exactly
is?
right. Yes, without losing that focus of the coffee, which is black coffee, right?
Is that what
That
you want people to be drinking? Do you want them to be
100%.
drinking the black coffee?
100%. Otherwise, the moment you start adding milk, you don't have to buy the most expensive coffee. I'm sorry, you just don't.
It
Right.
changes the whole experience.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not talking
like,
about the milk. I'm talking about you as a business owner. You're now building a whole other business. If the majority of what you're selling is all milk-based drinks compared to trying to bring the consumer over to a black, uh, the essence of what the
right.
beverage is trying to tell you.
Yeah, that's 100% because why, if I'm really doing the milk drinks only, and yeah, I'll sell the occasional black, but it's not a big deal. And that's not where the money is. Then, I'm really looking at contract based coffees.
Really?
What else? I
Yeah.
mean, I can throw in a little thing here and there for variety's sake, but that's essentially what I do at that point, right?
Yep.
So but the black coffee, when you get somebody who, I mean, I can't tell you how many, the event that's very hard to create is the one in which happens in my home once in a while or has. Like I'll get somebody to repair something like I had a stereo.
Mm-hmm.
So they come to repair the stereo and I literally say, I just made a cup of coffee if you'd like some, but I don't have, and I didn't, I don't have sugar or milk. It's just black. It says, yeah. And so he starts to drink it. And moments later, he's going, wow, you put sugar in this? I'm saying, no, there's no sugar, nothing. I've never had a sweet coffee like that before. Now you found somebody and they found you, right? How can you replicate that? That's the issue, right? And I don't necessarily have the answer to it. But the more you can, and I don't, it's not I saw a lot of that in San Francisco. I'm sure everywhere was a lot of cuppings back in 2010, 2015, when I was really visiting a lot of cafes from here to the West Coast, it was all about cupping. So you'd invite customers to come in and cup and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But cupping is part of the business. It's
Yeah.
not, but it's not really drinking the coffee like you do when you're home or anything else.
Mm.
It's not at all. It's necessary for coffee because when I'm cupping, I may be cupping 40 coffees or more. Depends, right? 10, 20, 30 coffees at one time. You got to move through all of this, and you're not getting 1 cup per coffee.
Yep.
You're getting 4, 5, 6 cups for that single coffee, and 40 coffees times 4,
Yep.
160 cups. That's the only way to do it.
Yep.
It's right. So, while I loved cupping, and I still do, it's not the same thing as drinking it.
Well, there's the romance, there's the experience, there's the whole. That's what we're selling, right? That we want the
Selling
person
the
to
experience,
connect.
yes, to drinking the whole thing. And even in the cupping, I prefer. We've always done it. We were doing the hygienic thing day one back in the early 2000s, and I was doing lectures, slideshows, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of photographs and stuff, with interspersed with tastings.
Okay.
So people would come in. We'd be able to do this for 50 up to 100 people.
In the
Right.
cafe?
The cafe was not big enough. We'd have to
Okay.
find big, right? And so we would find rooms where you could put 50 people or more with enough plugs that you wouldn't blow out the place. And we'd bring in 5 to 6 drip automatic drip coffee makers. They're the Bonavitas, which brew
Mm-hmm.
correct right temperature and so on. They're very consistent, so they all produce much the same result, right? And with those all connected, and again, if you put them all on one circuit, you're going to blow it out, right? As know where you were going, right? Had the
Yeah.
grinder else, and the first thing would be a few minutes of slideshow about just generalities about coffee, and then 5 or 6 coffees of the world, the rainbow of coffees.
And this was just consumers, George. Like you would get 50
Oh,
consumers
yeah.
wanting to come in and learn about how to brew coffee.
How to brew or about coffee in general, all of the above. But people came in for different reasons. But it was interesting that despite the fact that I was showing them over 200 photograph slides,
Yep.
literally through PowerPoint, mostly photographs in PowerPoint, but 200 of them, maybe 1 or 2 people would leave at most, and the rest stayed through the whole thing. And the trick was, again, they would taste the 5 coffees of the world, and it wasn't it's too slow and too messy and not hygienic to do cupping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, days post COVID, but even then, if you had a bad cold or a flu,
Yep.
you really pass it on. So right away, we would brew it in these machines and then pour into single cups. We would need 4 or 5 tables, depending on how many people. And we would create stations on the corners or on the edges of the table so that one table could have 4 places where people could line up. So
Wow.
you'd never have more than 4 or 5 people per area to share in those coffees. And they would be given a glass and a spoon. You take a spoon's worth and you put a spoon or 2 worth of that coffee into your glass and drink it like you might do a wine that you're tasting.
Right. So they're having the drinking experience while they're cupping.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. On the spot. Way better than the cup.
Can
Much
you
cleaner.
can you replicate that same experience today? Like if George Howell wanted to
Yeah,
do
100%.
no, I mean, do you think that you guys could bring 50 people from the consuming public into an event today and
Easy.
sell something? Really?
Yeah, easy. Really easy. Right.
How would you just tell them, you just market it to the public and say,
Yeah,
we're
we
going to
put it
hold
out
a,
there. Yeah, come on in. We were doing a lot of these for free for
yes,
starters.
and they're for free, right? But you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
do them because you're doing them
It's
because you're
not a
going to
matter
end
of
up,
making money.
right. It's about bringing people into the experience of coffee, and that ends up leading to benefits. But do you find that the public in Cambridge
Yeah.
wants to experience that educational process, or do they just want to drink a Frappuccino?
Well, the Harvard, I didn't do it by then. I started doing this much more with the third wave concept.
Right.
Well,
But even now,
I did start in Cup of Excellence, in Coffee Connection back in the late
okay.
80s, starting to develop it. Right. But today, yeah, it's very successful when you do it and you create a lot of enthusiasm. But you do the 6 coffees or 5 coffees of the world and
Yep.
you have to orchestrate it.
Right.
What's
It's
going
a
to,
presentation.
yeah, and you want every coffee to be different.
Yep.
You want them side by side in a way where, yeah, when you go from A to B, B is different from A
Right.
and C different from B and so on. And
Right.
maybe kind of, wow, it gets more interesting as I go forward. The first
Right.
one is it's sweet.
Yeah.
It's a coffee thing. And then as you go forward, you can become more, wide
Sour,
range.
whatever.
Yeah.
It can get
Well, with
more
the sour,
acidic.
got to be top of the line, really great experiences. So no sour.
But you
They've all
don't,
got to be sweet.
so you don't want to teach people that there's a
Oh,
difference
this is the
between,
thing between
okay.
forward tastings, right?
Okay.
Uh, so they do this quite quickly. They all get up from their chairs, they go to the tables,
Right.
right? And they're given the glass and the spoon, and then they start, and you tell them which A is over here, and then you want to end up in E or F right over here, right? And they'll start, and you take the spoon, you drink it. Now you go to the next one. Uh, you put 2 spoonfuls in, you drink that. The glass that you're doing it in is cool,
Hmm.
so it cools coffee.
Quickly. Yeah. So they can
So
enjoy
you
the
really
drink. Yeah.
right then and right at just the ideal temperature,
Yeah.
right? Taste everything, and you set it up so that at the end they're doing more floral coffee,
Mm.
fruitier coffee, this kind of thing. So now you understand that it's not just coffee; it's a world,
It, yeah.
right? So you create a landscape, right? And you see the new world, right?
And then they're
Now,
hooked. Now they're part
then
of our cult.
it's essential. And so the next step is then I start to take them through the long road to quality. That's what I
Yeah.
called it. And so what does a farmer face, right? Where they're going to grow the coffee? What variety are they going to pick? What are the problems that are involved? Mountains, difficulty getting to the coffee, and so on. So you get to the harvest, and then people are asked to get up again with their same cups and spoons, and now they're going to taste ripe versus unripe from the same place,
Okay.
right? So now they just got 2 coffees, but they're going to taste first, always the ripe first, the good one first, and then the bad one,
Wow.
right? The unripe. And I'm inoculating people,
Yeah.
right? This is when you taste this flavor, this is what you're tasting, right?
Yep.
And it becomes very clear, especially with the unripe, you notice it in the aftertaste and stuff, right? And we suggest go back to the ripe and one more time and start to notice. You got to pick these things right. They've really got to be clear cut, right? And light roasted, never dark, right? Because the light roast really puts out what's there.
It's
But
not
no,
hiding anything.
right? You do not want sauce. You do not want ketchup, roast, or any of that. And then you have them sit down again. So these moments of cupping don't last, of tasting rather, they don't last more than about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, right? They're not long because it's so quick and clean.
Yeah.
While you're taking through the next slides, your staff of maybe 2 people are cleaning up and setting up the next set, right? and brewing it. And then you go further and you go to processing, washed, natural, bulk natural, all of that. And then you do the same thing. You're going to taste washed versus natural from the same place, right? Or the same area or region, right? So they will taste the washed first because it's milder, it's lighter, right? Always the thing that's going to hit you over the head comes next, not first.
Okay.
And so you taste those. And so people get a grasp of that world, right? And then you go further and you explain with many different slides as far as you want about its freshness.
And this just continues to evolve, and clients then get on board, and they're now specialty coffee drinkers. And you can still do that
not
now.
Not all of them by any means.
No, but you're bringing them into a process. But really, like, you guys could. So the reason I'm sounding so surprised is because so many people contact me and saying we're really struggling to bring the consumer into specialty now. And I guess that's because of so many converging issues, right? Cost of living crisis, people ordering off those delivery apps now, so it's really difficult to engage the consumer. Do you think that people are still looking to do something like that now?
If you do it, they'll come.
Amazing. Right. Folks, I hope that you consider trying this, because we're looking for ideas now. As so many people contact me and say, we need ideas, Lee. We don't know what to do now. We're in crisis. We don't know what to do. So that's really important. We're going to wrap this episode up here. Then in the next episode, folks, we're going to continue to talk about the coffee crisis from the perspective of George Howell, but we're going to be talking more about the producer. So join us for the next episode. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.